So Bhagavad Gita is a practical book. Srila Prabhupada said, every devotee may learn it in and outside. And all devotees have the opportunity by the study of Bhagavad Gita to constantly view their own life through the directions of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So why should we study the Bhagavad Gita? So may I ask from somewhere online here, what do you see of a reason to study Bhagavad Gita?
Maharaj, I think the reason is it's an instruction to life, and how should we conduct ourselves, how should we in our day-to-day activities, and what should be the ultimate goal. So I see it as an instruction manual.
Yeah. So that's one thing you see, it's an instruction how to conduct our lives. Mother Vajradulali or Bhakta Michael, what do you think? But why should we study Bhagavad Gita?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept our humble obeisances.
Yeah, my humble obeisance.
So the Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Lord Shri Krishna. So he's given his instructions on how to live our life. And even though this same instruction was instructed millions of years ago, it still applies to us today. So it's the Lord's instructions. So and we should abide by what he says.
Mm-hmm. Follow the instructions of Lord Krishna, his guidance.
Yes.
Good. Mother Vinod Manjari, I'm happy to see you online. Would you like to share with us why should we study Bhagavad Gita?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yeah, I feel that Bhagavad Gita is very crucial because it purifies our consciousness. Just the shlokas, if we hear in itself, that purifies our consciousness and elevates it to the transcendental position. And the divine instructions of Krishna to Arjuna are applicable to us and can help to strengthen our conviction and resolve as preachers and as followers of the Vedic tradition. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if anyone uses his intellect to understand Bhagavad Gita, he's actually worshipping him with his intellect. So there's many reasons it's so important to study Bhagavad Gita, but there's just a few of my ideas.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Like you said, there are many reasons. Certainly one reason is, it is already said, following Krishna's guidance. But where is this guiding going to lead us? Is Krishna's guidance back to the spiritual world? Another reason is, Srila Prabhupada said many times that Bhagavad Gita is based, or the activities of ISKCON are authorized by Bhagavad Gita. Whatever we do in ISKCON is authorized by Bhagavad Gita. Of course, another point made was it purifies us. What does it mean, purification? It frees us. It's freeing us from the body concept of life, because it is a theistic science of the soul. It teaches the process of self-realization. A few interesting points of Bhagavad Gita that I found is like this number 18. This number 18 we find many times in the whole story of the Mahabharata and in the Vedic literature. How many chapters does Bhagavad Gita have? 18. The battle took place during 18 days. There was a total of 18 Aksahinis involved. So in numerology, 18 is a special figure because that it's 1 and 8. 1 and 8 together is 9, and that's the maximum or the highest number. It's an auspicious number. So that there's some importance in Bhagavad Gita. So the 18 chapters are divided in 3 parts. Who can tell me something about these 3 parts of the division of these 18 chapters? The first 6, the middle 6, the last 6. Why is that division there? That someone knows?
Sorry, Maharaj, what is the question again?
Well, there are 18 chapters. And the Bhagavad Gita is divided in 3 sections of 6 chapters. The first 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters, and the last 6 chapters. Why is that? And why is that division there? Well, what's common at the first 6 chapters and the middle 6 and the 6 chapters?
Karma Yoga, I think it's the first 6. Is that right?
Yeah, in the first 6, Krishna speaks about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Astanga Yoga. So that, and also it hints to Bhakti Yoga.
Right.
But the middle chapters are considered the essence of Bhagavad Gita, the heart. Why is that?
Yes, Maharaj, is it because the middle chapters are around Bhakti Yoga and more
Yoga,
confidential
right.
yoga?
Yes, this is the highest yoga, is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. And the third 6 chapters, they discuss, what do they discuss?
Mainly Jnana.
Jnana Yoga.
Yeah, mainly Jnana Yoga. Yeah, right. That the 18th chapter is actually not included in the third 6 because it gives a summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita. So why are the Bhakti chapters put in the middle? There are 4 reasons given by our commentators. One is that Bhakti is Rahasya, in that Krishna speaks about this Rahasya in the 3rd chapter, in the 3rd verse of the 4th chapter. That Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, yes, this secret of devotional service can be understood by you because you are my friend and you are my devotee. That I think it's 4:3. I forgot the Sanskrit. That Saibya Mayatitya Yoga Prokta Puratana. That Bhaktusi Mesakasiti Rahasyam Yetat Uttanam. Rahasyam, the mystery, the secret. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and therefore can understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So that's one reason. It's secret. That It's very secret. It's the essence of the scriptures. It's the purpose of all the scriptures. Vedanta krit vedavit evatsaham, Krishna says in 15:15. That so bhakti is the essence of all scriptures, of all the Vedic literatures. But it's very secret. It's hidden in the middle 6 chapters, the protected. A second reason is that bhakti is one of the topics discussed in Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Karma and Jnana Yoga without bhakti that will not bear any results. So bhakti gives life to karma and jnana. Of course, bhakti is surrounded by karma and jnana. We get knowledge, we have action, but it is Bhagavad Gita is meant to give them life. Without bhakti, these other yogas are useless. They will not bring any results. So out of respect, something is kept hidden. You don't take immediately your most valuable secret truths and tell it before a stranger. So when the person is a little intimate, then he will tell you something secret and hidden. Out of respect for that thing, bhakti is kept in the middle chapters. And also because bhakti is important, it's kept in the middle. So it is like when a king is traveling, then a great entourage is following him. Thousands of people in front of him and thousands of people behind him, all playing drums, chariot, horses, elephants, like that. The king himself is the most important member, is in the middle. Similarly, bhakti is in the middle. Now, of course, we will start studying with the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The first 13 verses, we will hear about Dhritarashtra's doubts, and then from 14 to 23, the signs of victory of the Pandavas. And then 24 to 36 is very interesting. We will hear about the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna. And then at the end, Arjuna gives 4 reasons not to fight. So, of course, we know in Bhagavad Gita there are 5 topics discussed. So the jiva first. We will need to understand that Arjuna's reasons for not fighting are on the body platform of existence. His lamentations are symptoms of being conditioned. We will discuss that, and then we will hear about the relationship of Krishna and Arjuna, and about Ishvara. Krishna, interestingly, becomes the chariot of Arjuna, and is the Ishvara. And Arjuna is afraid of getting karma, committing sinful acts. So we will discuss these points. Now, Sankaracharya, he has described Bhagavad Gita as a flow of nectar coming from Krishna's mouth to Arjuna. So we are fortunate because by hearing it, we can also taste that nectar. So Srila Prabhupada recommended that we know Bhagavad Gita inside and outside because it is our basic preaching book. We usually know something of Bhagavad Gita, some isolated parts. We know that there is something about Karma Yoga in Bhagavad Gita and about Ashtanga Yoga. And we know that universal form is described in the 11th chapter. And we know about Sarvadharman Parityāga, and that Krishna says somewhere in the middle of the chapter, I'm the sun and the moon, I'm the fish among the fish, I'm the shark. We know little pieces, and we know the enos vinchotade, we are not his body. But usually we are lacking, what we are lacking is an understanding of Bhagavad Gita as a whole. Bhagavad Gita is a cohesive unit. And now the philosophy develops from the 1st to the 18th chapter. So this is the goal of the presentation here, of these presentations. And we will start with the first 2 chapters. That seeing Bhagavad Gita as a cohesive unit. It is actually a cohesive unit. Bhagavad Gita is the practical book that should govern all our external activities. That it's essentially, if we study Bhagavad Gita, that you know how it fits together. That how because the study of Bhagavad Gita will greatly help our practical preaching and practical application of the Bhagavad Gita. But the first thing we need to know is the spirit of approaching Bhagavad Gita. It's not like an ordinary book, Bhagavad Gita, that one must have a certain mood to get the benefit. We just heard that Arjuna and Krishna says to Arjuna, that yes, you are my devotee and my friend, and therefore you understand this mystery. It's like if you want to take a medicine, then we have to follow the instructions of the label. We cannot take the medicine according to our own whims. It should be taken to the direction of the doctor. And Bhagavad Gita was instructed by Krishna to Arjuna, because Arjuna was a devotee of the Lord, a direct student of Krishna and an intimate friend. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita is best understood by a person who has similar qualities to Arjuna. Not easy. Prabhupada said many times, Arjuna was 1,000 more qualified than all of us. So that is to say that one must be a devotee in direct relationship with the Lord. Then Prabhupada describes 5 rasas and in the introduction, and then he mentioned that Arjuna was in Sakyaras. So Srila Prabhupada talks right from within the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita about Arjuna's relationship with Krishna. Then he mentioned that we have all forgotten our relationship with Krishna. Reviving that relationship is called Svarup. By the process of bhakti, we can revive that Svarup, and that is called Svarupa Siddhi. We refer to one's constitutional position. Then he quotes in the introduction that Arjuna, he had great faith. Arjuna said, "You are the supreme truth, and I accept everything you say." And all the rishis confirm the same thing, and therefore I accept everything you say. Srila Prabhupada concludes that this one should think that Krishna, Prabhupada concludes, the Gita should be taken in a spirit of devotion. one should not think that one is equal to Krishna, or nor should one think that Krishna is an ordinary person or a great personality. It's God. According to the statement of Arjuna, we should at least theoretically accept Krishna is God. This is the adhikar for someone to study Bhagavad Gita. The person may not be convinced that Krishna is God, but at least one should think that this is a very good possibility and read a book with this mentality. This is like the minimum qualification to study Bhagavad Gita. So with that submissive spirit, we can understand the Gita. Unless one reads the Gita in a submissive spirit, it is very difficult to understand because it is a great mystery. We spoke in the beginning about why should we study Bhagavad Gita. Then the first point is, what is Bhagavad Gita? The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from nations. Krishna descends when people lose track of the goal of life. Then he comes to re-establish that in human society. Being an eternal associate of Krishna, Arjuna was above all ignorance. He was under the spiritual energy. But Arjuna was put into ignorance on the battle of Kurukshetra, just to question Krishna about the problems of life so that the Lord could explain them for the benefit of us, of future generations, of human beings, and chalk out a plan of life. Just so that man can act according to a perfect mission of human life. So that is the purpose of perfecting the human mission of life. Although Arjuna, he appears to fall in Maya, overwhelmed with lamentation and sentimentality for his relatives, but it's just a drama performed. A drama like on the stage. And Yoga Maya, the spiritual energy, envelopes Arjuna, who is playing a role as his service to Krishna. Because Krishna goes and Arjuna, they go from universe to universe to another, and in the next universe they play another drama. He's put into ignorance, and then Krishna has to enlighten him by speaking Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna uses him as an instrument, so that he can ask the right questions to Krishna, so that Krishna can speak Bhagavad Gita. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions the same thing in his commentary to the Sarvata Dharmam Parichaya sloka in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that Arjuna was put into ignorance by the Lord. Srila Vishwanath Thakur says that Krishna was speaking to Arjuna for the benefit of all human beings. And I've placed you in a kind of illusion. So that confirms what Prabhupada is saying here in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. Then yes, that's the purpose of Bhagavad Gita, but what is the subject of Bhagavad Gita? So Srila Prabhupada in the introduction goes to that. What is the subject? Then this is actually given by one of our previous acharyas, Madhvacharya. It says there are 5 truths. Ishvara, Jiva, Pragati, Kala, Karma. These truths make up what is called Sambandha Jnana. Sambandha Jnana is very important, because if you cannot understand Sambandha Jnana, then one cannot understand the relationship between Ishvara, Krishna, Jiva, the spirit soul, and Prakriti, material nature. There are three main things of these five. Karma, Kala and karma are in some way subsidiary, secondary. If you understand these three things, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, then you can understand the philosophy basically. That is why Bhagavad Gita speaks about these three things. You see that all different disciplines, as science and religion and various disciplines, they also study these things. The religionist will say God, the soul and matter. And the scientist would say, like the ultimate causal factor, the conscious and the conscious observer. So these are very clinical terms used by the scientists. They speak of matter, the same thing. Then you have karma, which is only one of the five factors. This is the only factor that is temporary. This is between the Jiva and Prakriti. There is no karma dealing with the Lord. This is an arrangement between these two. This is according to Ramanuja philosophy, which is similar to ours. This is called Vishesha and Visheshanat. In other words, this is the original subject and there are objects of the original subject. So there are expansions or energies of the Vishesha and the Visheshanat, and they are dependent on the original Vishesha or source. So karma is between these two. It's temporary. So it has to do with the Jiva's consciousness. That's when the Jiva decides to cooperate in its constitutional position, he can return and become free from karma and any connection with Prakriti. So that's important to understand how we can disentangle ourselves from this struggle with the material energy. Then you have the energy called Kala, the time factor. This is another form of God. And that energy is injected inside Prakriti in the beginning of creation, which is actually the original state of the Pradhan. And the Pradhan, Maya, when it's injected with both the Jivas and the time, the Kala chakra, and so these are all injected by the glance of Mahavishnu. And his glance enters Pradhan, the subtle manifest potential energy to the material energy. The glimmer of the material energy becomes manifested after the Lord injects it with his glance, that with the help of Sambhu, who carries the glance. Anyway, that's all described in the Bhagavatam. So then, the basic idea of Bhagavad Gita is that Arjuna does not want to fight. And he gave Krishna so many reasons why he shouldn't fight. Lord Krishna answers all these doubts and explains that Arjuna should fight just as an offering to him. That surrender, 1866. Superficially, Krishna is speaking the Bhagavad Gita to get Arjuna to fight, but actually he's not speaking it for that purpose. The basic reason why Krishna is speaking the Gita is because he's very compassionate. He arranged the entire Mahabharata, which is one of the most popular books in the world. Hundreds and thousands of people have read it. And within the Mahabharata is this gem. And this gem is Bhagavad Gita. that so now Krishna has arranged for this great battle. Imagine 504 million people are going to be killed in this battle. It is a battle that has to do with kings and who is going to be the king of the world. Families, royal families are fighting. There is intrigue, there is conspiracy, there is murder, brother against brother, there is exile. Yeah. It's an exciting story. The culmination is that there is a meeting on the battlefield. Naturally, one wants to know who is going to win. Thousands of people are ready to engage in warfare. In the middle of that, Arjuna and Krishna appear. Why? What is going to happen? So Krishna's purpose of the whole drama of Bhagavad Gita is compassion. Simply wants us to hear Bhagavad Gita. This is the prime reason Krishna states, he speaks the whole Gita so that we hear this important message. So there is a history, of course, in the Mahabharata before the battle. The two kings of Pandu and Dhritarashtra were all descendants of Bharat. The history of greater India is called Mahabharata. Dhritarashtra was older than Pandu. He did not become king because of his lack of eyesight, so he was disturbed about that. Pandu had 5 sons. The oldest is, of course, Yudhishthir, then Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadev, and Dhritarashtra had 100 sons. Who is the chief of those sons? The evil Duryodhana. Dhritarashtra was not a king as the succession passed around him to Pandu. After Pandu died at a young age due to a curse, his sons were meant to become the king. Yudhishthira, the eldest son, was destined to become the king, but because they were too young, they were placed under the care of Dhritarashtra. Then Dhritarashtra's envious sons, especially Duryodhana, planned to kill these boys. Immediately Duryodhana planned to give them poison. He has made a house that was beautifully constructed, looking like a palace. It was made of flammable lac. He invited the Pandavas to live in this house and to spend the summer there. But the Pandavas realized that it smelled a bit strange. The house burned down, but prior to that, by the mercy of Vidura, they escaped. Vidura informed them in an indirect way. There were so many plots to kill the Pandavas by the sons of Dhritarashtra. Finally, Duryodhana arranged a gambling match with the Pandavas. The result of that gambling match, using Sakuni, Duryodhana created the Pandavas and Duryodhana cheated the Pandavas and obliged them to go in exile for 13 years. After 13 years, they had to spend 1 year more in exile. Wonderful, intriguing stories in the Mahabharata. They came back after 14 years and they asked Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, please, we want our kingdom back. We have done honestly as we had promised. We have gone to the forest for 13 years. It was not easy, but we went. 1 year in exile, we went. Now please give us our kingdom. And they said, no. Then half of the kingdom. You can take half. But we are Kshatriyas, the royal family, give us half the kingdom. Take the other half. No, said Duryodhana, but we are Kshatriyas. We cannot do any other profession. We cannot be Brahmins, Vaishyas, we cannot be Sudras. At least we are administrators. At least give us 5 villages so that each of us can take charge of a village. And to that, Duryodhana replied, no, I cannot spare even enough land for you to drive a pin in. Duryodhana was so envious towards the Pandavas. By doing that, it was immediately understood that there would be a war for the kingdom. So Krishna, he remained neutral. He acted as messenger. Of course, because he factually organized everything, but he stayed at the background. He placed the neutral party. He acted as a messenger. So the Pandavas were glorified because Krishna is Bhakta Vatsal. He served his devotees in this way. And the Pandavas were glorified, being so dear to Krishna. Krishna was going out of his way to act as their manager. So Krishna went to Duryodhana and said, please give the Pandavas their kingdom. And how did Duryodhana and Karna react? They tried to capture Krishna. As a messenger, even they tried to capture him and bind him up and throw him in jail. They rejected the Pandavas' offer for peace. They had a plan like that, but Krishna laughed loudly and expanded into a universal form. Seeing this, the universal form, the result was war. So Duryodhana and Yudhishthira began asking all the kings in the world to contribute armies to take side in the war. The nature of the Kshatriya is that they like war, they like fighting. They are fixed in spiritual consciousness in many ways. The Vedic Kshatriyas were fixed in spiritual consciousness, as they know that they are not their bodies, and they know that when they die in the battle, they will be elevated to heavenly planets. So they are very eager to fight, and they have that spirit. All over the world, Kshatriyas were rushing to take part in the battle. Yudhishthira and Duryodhana went to different countries first to ask, please be on my side, don't be on the other side. They both arrived at Krishna's door at the same time to ask Arjuna to be on, to ask Krishna to be on their side. Krishna was resting. So Arjuna and Duryodhana, they both went into the room to ask Krishna, and they wanted to be the first one who Krishna saw when he woke up. They knew that Krishna would say, oh, why have you come? What do you want? And then they would immediately say, be on my side. However, Krishna was first. Krishna was lying down, and Duryodhana stood right by the face of Krishna, just waiting to open his eyes so that he could say, Duryodhana, you have come, how can I serve you? But Yudhishthira, being a devotee, stood at Krishna's feet. It was Yudhishthira. And when Krishna woke up, he immediately sat and he immediately saw Yudhishthira and said, oh, Yudhishthira, you have come to see me. How can I serve you? What is your request? And immediately Yudhishthira began to speak about the impending war and which side he would be on. And Krishna was the cousin, brother of both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So he decided that he himself would not fight. He would take one side but he would not act as a fighter or a warrior, but he would remain impartial. On the other side, so he would take one side and he would not act as a fighter or a warrior. He would remain impartial. And the other side would not have Krishna. When they would get Krishna's armies, which were many, many thousands of men. So when presented this to Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira had his first choice. So he immediately chose Krishna on his side. And Duryodhana was very happy by that choice. He was a practical man. Duryodhana was happy because he got Krishna's armies. So this is how everything was lining up. Eventually, Arjuna asked Krishna to be his chariot driver. Krishna is also glorified as Partha's Sarathi. The chariot driver of Arjuna is driving the chariot of Arjuna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Parama Ishvara, the Supreme Brahman, is driving the chariot of his devotees. And then the Bhagavad Gita starts. The first 27 verses, they are describing the preparations for the war. So it's then after that we will hear about Arjuna's dilemma. Why does not want to fight? So these first 27 verses are very basic. They include a lot of interesting commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Vidyabhushan, two important commentators. And that's because Srila Prabhupada, in his purpose of Bhagavad Gita, gets his commentaries mainly from these two, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti and Baladev Vidyabhushan. Very sweet commentaries. We will also look at the commentaries of Sridhar Swami, Ramanujacharya, but primarily we draw from Prabhupada and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti and Baladev Vidyabhushan. They put in some very interesting things which are like gems we will describe. Sometimes they put verses between the verses to clarify it first. So we will just discuss as introduction today the first verse. This verse sets the scene. I will read the verse. Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharmaksheta Kauchete Samaveda Yuyutsava Mamaka Pandavashiva Kimakovata Sanyaya. That Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? This verse sets the scene. Sanjaya was the secretary of Dhritarashtra. After the battle was going on for some days, after Bhishma had fallen on the battlefield, Sanjaya was fighting in the battle, and he journeyed to Hastinapur to tell this news to Dhritarashtra, that Bhishma Deva had fallen. And he's relating at that time what happened up to this point in the battle, and this wonderful dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Dhritarashtra was blind and did not know what happened during the battle. Prabhupada explains in the last of the half of the purport the word Dharmakshetra, a place where religious rituals were performed is significant, because on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present on the side of Arjuna. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from his secretary, Sanjaya. He said, what did they do? A bit strange question, because they are on the battlefield. What are they going to do? He was confident that his sons and the sons of his younger brother Pandu were assembled in that field of Kurukshetra for determinate engagement of the war. Still, his inquiry is significant. He did not want to compromise his cousins and brothers. He wanted to be sure of the fate of his sons on the battlefield, because the battle was arranged at Kurukshetra, which was mentioned elsewhere in the Vedas as a place of worship. So even for the denizens of heaven, Dhritarashtra became very fearful by the influence of the holy place and the outcome of the battle, because he was bad. He did not want the good place to put its favorable influence, because that would diminish the power of his sons, or possibly the power of the Pandavas would become stronger, or possibly the Kauravas would leave the battle. No, he did not want any of that. He wanted a battle, a war, and the annihilation of the Pandavas. That was what Dhritarashtra wanted. Now he's asking in a neutral way, but his consciousness is not at all neutral. He knew very well that this would influence Arjuna and the sons of Pandu favorably, because by nature they are all virtuous. Sanjaya was a student of Vyas, and therefore by the mercy of Vyas, Sanjaya was able to envision the battlefield of Kurukshetra even while he was in the room with Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra asked him about the situation on the battlefield. So Prabhupada writes, the word Dharmakshetra, situation on the battlefield, that Dhritarashtra, being bad, was afraid that this good place would diminish the power of his son. So he didn't want his sons and the Pandavas to compromise, or the Pandavas to become stronger or leave the battlefield, give up and go to the forest under the influence of Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. He wanted a battle, a war, and the Pandavas annihilated. Even though he is asking it in a neutral way, his consciousness is not neutral. Srila Prabhupada says we must hear Bhagavad Gita from a disciplic representative without motivated interpretation. Therefore, Dhritarashtra did not benefit much from hearing Bhagavad Gita, we can understand. So the history of Kurukshetra, I think it's related to King Kuru plowing the field. I don't remember the details of that. But the first verse of Bhagavad Gita is a question posed by Dhritarashtra. That the last verse of Bhagavad Gita, we can see as Lord Krishna's answer. That wherever there is Arjuna and wherever there is Krishna, there will always be victory. That's the last verse. It is ironic that Dhritarashtra is telling what they are doing and then asking what they are doing. Dhritarashtra is a tricky fellow. He's a little crooked. He has Hridaya Daurbalyam, which we learn in Bhagavad Gita, like Duryodhana also. In the Garga Samhita, it mentions that Duryodhana is a partial Amsa of Kali. Dhritarashtra is a demigod named Bharava. So he's playing a role actually. He's really a nice guy, but he's playing the evil role. So Krishna engages devotees in playing certain roles. That some have the bad roles, some the good role. So Dhritarashtra is a demigod. But he's playing an evil role. And the first verse, Dharma, Kshetra, Kurukshetra, is very interesting. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has described that Saraswati Devi has indicated a special meaning here for the word Dharma. He described, she describes it, and Prabhupada refers to this in the last paragraph of his commentary. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Dharmaraj, or Yudhishthira, who is Dharmaraj, Dharma personified, and his brothers are compared to rice plants in the kshetra, in the field. Dharma means Yudhishthira, and kshetra means that place. They are compared, that place, they are compared to rice plants. And Krishna is a farmer, is the gardener. As in the rice paddy field, when you are growing rice, there are some shyam or dark plants which have to be pulled up. Otherwise, they suck all the water and kill the rice plant. So Duryodhana is like the dark weeds, and Krishna is pulling Duryodhana and company, which are like the weeds, which will destroy the field. And Krishna, assisting the Pandavas, is like water, pulling water in the rice field and pulling the walls around the rice field to keep the water nicely situated. Prabhupada mentions Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur examples in his commentaries in a few sentences. So that's the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. We looked at the first verse, and next Friday we will hear what we can call what we could call the Duryodhana Gita. That Duryodhana is speaking to his guru, Dronacharya, and we will hear a lot of interesting points there and learn all these characters. So, any questions or comments?
So Maharaj, is the question. So what pace do you plan to do this Bhagavad Gita? Is it a chapter class or something like that?
It's difficult to say, but every lesson I want to discuss a section. So there are 4 sections in the first chapter.
Okay.
And so that will, of course, the second chapter is a summary. There we have much more sections. But some sections have more commentaries than others. So we'll see where we come. That, yes.
I think your previous, I had seen your, I think earlier in the year or late last year, I had seen some of the slides that you had produced with the commentaries from Bharata Vidyabhushan and yeah, and I think that was really useful, Maharaj. I think I've taken some pictures when you were presenting last time in the temple.
Yeah.
If there are something like that, that will be nice, Maharaj. A suggestion.
Yeah, this is going a little deeper. It's not going so quickly. that we gave the introduction today, and we spoke about the first verse quite elaborately. So by that we can also more deeply understand the purpose of Srila Prabhupada, the input of the commentators, and the deeper meanings. That, this was just the introduction. Many stories also from the Mahabharata, especially for this first chapter, it brings it to life. And if you hear that and you read next time the Gita, then you will remember this, how these verses are situated, how they relate to the history and so on, and also of the deeper meaning of the spiritual techniques. Because sometimes we think the first chapter it's more the battlefield and a preparation, but we'll see a lot of deep philosophy in this first chapter, and that is there also. That in Srila Prabhupada's commentaries. But anyway, it's an attempt to go deeper in Prabhupada's Gita, trying to understand it, also the connections. Good. Any other question, comment?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Prachudula.
No question, but just more like a realization how the Kauravas were very privileged to see Krishna's face all the time, whereas Arjuna would see the back of Krishna because he was riding his chariot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's seeing the back of Krishna. I think Arjuna was completely fixed on the battle. That it is an interesting point that it said that the back of Krishna represents irreligion. But Krishna was serving Arjuna, and Arjuna was doing his service for the pleasure of Krishna. So there cannot be a question of anything inauspicious. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I used to walk up and down during the japa period. And sometimes when I walk back, I'm with my back to the deities. Then I turn again. And some Prabhupada disciple said to me, he said, "Oh, that's with your back to the deities, that's offensive." And I asked Prahlad Nanda Maharaj, and he said, how can there be a question of offense? You are chanting Krishna's holy name, that you are serving by chanting. So if we are busy with our service, then we should not take these details to give them too much importance. There may be, it's like in Radhadesh we had a big question at some times. This is 30 years ago, and there was a whole research and they do that in many temples. We have at 7:15 darshan of the deities. After darshan of the deities, we turn to Prabhupada. And then we have Guru Puja. But during the Guru Puja, we stand with our back to the deities. And the curtains are open. So the question is, that is offensive. We should stop doing that. Or should we, but we are doing it for so long, should we change that? And the answer to that question was that we are glorifying Prabhupada, and it may be an offense, but it's a minor offense. Krishna likes his pure devotee to be glorified. So by that, they do it in the same way at the Bhaktivedanta manner still today. So that is, of course, we can, in Prabhupada's time, they were standing a little aside, not really with their back to the deities. But yeah, these things are there, but they are minor, not so important, because Arjuna was serving Krishna. Does that help?
Yeah, that's wonderful, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay. Then we will continue on Friday, and we will enter more deeply the first chapter, observing the armies, trying to understand the mood of this battlefield and get deeper insights to the commentaries of our acharyas. Thank you very, very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Bol.